day, sir.
Hello.
Your name?
Purcell Vandenberg.
And when were you born, Mr. Vandenberg?
I was born in 1932.
In Mooresville?
Yes. About a mile down the road here.
We didn't have doctors. Our parents, would use herbs out of the woods, and that's all we had, And any doctoring that was done, they did it, We now when the children were born, we did have midwives that would come in, but other than that, I don't remember ever going to a doctor until we moved.
That's what you're referring to?
Yeah, when I say worked in homes, domestic work.
Do you have any stories about that?
Nah, I was just glad to get out of there. Well, yeah, I worked for this old preacher for so many years. I don't know how many years, but...
White preacher?
Yeah. When I started working for them, his wife was living. And then she passed away during the time, and I worked for him several more years. Then he left, he retired. He was at the ARP church. He was a minister there, and he retired and moved to Charlotte, and I went down there and worked for a while for him. And it was, he used to say all the time, I got you in my will. You would never guess how much he left me in his will. But anyway, he didn't have to do that either, but,
Well, I hear a lot.
You want to know, don't you?
I do. I do. I do. But he came through on it.
$50.
I will say that back when I was small, my grandmother always had remedies that they would go out and get for various things. Because I guess they just didn't, at that particular time, they just didn't trust doctors because they feel that doctors was experimenting on them, which they was, and go back to the smallpox and all this history, and the reason why that a lot of people was so hesitant about getting the vaccines and things at this day, of getting the vaccines. Now, I remember when, and this is very personal to me, I remember when my sister Phyllis, my mom and dad told us when Phyllis was 2 years old, she got sick. And when she got sick, my mom carried her to the doctor, to the hospital. And while she was there in the hospital, while the doctor was calling, saying that we'll get arrested and get a room for her, well, my mom said, well, I gotta go pick up my husband. So she left to go pick up my dad. And when she got back, the doctor took it upon himself to give her a spinal tap. And that spinal tap caused her to go blind. She didn't walk anymore until she was, right before she passed, she was in her 60s. And she never talked again. And there was nothing that my dad, my mom could do. They tried to. My dad was in the Navy at that time. He tried to get Navy doctors, Navy judges, lawyers, and everybody else to see what could be done about it. And nobody would touch it. Nobody would touch her. Messed her up at 2 years old, and she was like that the rest of her life. And I could see why back then some of the parents was a little skeptical about doctors and them experimenting on the autism. At that time, there was a lot of jobs that my parents had that they didn't have insurance. Like my mom was doing domestic work. So she didn't have any insurance. And then my dad, at that time, he was in the military, but he got out. But then when he got out, he was working like construction jobs and things of this nature. So a lot of them didn't have insurance. So I can't hardly remember ever going to a doctor unless it was going to get my shots to start the school. And I think that those was mandatory, and I think that the health department kind of took care of things like that. But a lot of people at that time, especially minorities, they just didn't have any insurance because of the jobs that their parents was working.
My mother could go in the woods or the fields and pick what we needed to, and what she would do was bring it home and, stew it down and get the juice, and we would drink that. It was something that, took care of us not having to go to a doctor that we never had. And I had one sister. She always had an earache. What my mother would do, she would send me and my sister into the woods, and we would go there, and she told us what to do. And we would find a tree that had fell, and we would move it over and get there was a big bug about this long. We called
Bedbug.
Bedbug. And we took that, my mother took that bug, broke his head off, and got that drop, put it in my sister's ear for the earache, and it worked. It worked.
Do you remember Vance now?
I remember him, yeah. I don't think we went because we didn't have a way to go. But I remember him. Just like going to camp meeting, we would, there was a man lived out here. His name was Mr. Walker. He had a truck, big truck, and that's how we got to camp meeting. Like we'd go to Torrance, and we'd go to Moss Grove and Tucker, and he would come around and pick us up. We'd be at a certain little spot, and he would pick us up in this truck, and then he'd go pick up some more people, people that didn't, like us, didn't have a way, like out on the river here, because he lived out that way. And, and that's where we got to camp meet. He had a big truck. So that was, nice. At least we got there, back home.
The Cornelius girls were talking about where they used to live on the Tuberfield farm. Well, that's where I was born, over there on the same farm. They was on one side of the creek and we was on the other side. And man was Flake Tuberfield. He was the man that gave me my name. A white man naming a black boy. But at the time I was growing up, I didn't know no different. I didn't know black from white. The word, wasn't used around me. And he would come down the road. Well, our house was right there beside the road. And he'd be out working, he'd come home for lunch. I'd hear him coming down the road on the tractor. I'd run out to the road. He'd pull up, get off, pick me up, put me on the tractor, go home with him. Sit in there and eat lunch with him, you know. I didn't, you know. I was way up there. And I started hearing about black and white. You know, hey, I seen as much, but I was around black, white as I was black. And really the black ones I was around was my relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins. If I didn't see them, then I was around somebody white. But after I got up to my age out of school, well, I got getting the feeling of when I graduated in '65 and started working. I remember this old restaurant right up the street. We get out work. I was working third shift, and we get out from work. We go up there and get us some coffee or something in the morning, but we couldn't go through the front door. Now, all black people had to go in the back. But then, at that time, there was a lot of places that I couldn't go in the front door. If you wanted to eat a hot dog or something, you had to go around to the back door. But we'd be in the back there, talking, drinking coffee. We didn't care nothing about the white people. We had ourselves a good time. They was having themselves a good time. But really, I didn't pay no attention. I got through. I went on about my business. I joined the fire department at an early age. I spent 30 years as a firefighter. Then I spent another 30 years I spent building houses. So I've been blessed. I've enjoyed working. Matter of fact, when I was growing up, there was a white family that lived right down the street there. The man in the house and my father, they used to work together, and they would take turns and driving. One drive to work one week, the other drive the next week. And my mama would get me and my sister, and we would walk down there. We'd stay down there till my daddy and them, till they came home, especially the week my dad was driving. We'd stay down there till he brought the man home, and then we'd get in the car and ride back home. And we did that for a long time. They had 4 boys. And so I was in the age with the 3 of the boys. My sister was the age of the youngest boy. So the youngest boy, he couldn't play with us because we were a little older. So he'd have to stay there and play with my sister. But as the years went by, you know, he walked up to me. Well, he was building houses. And we ran into each other one day, and we was there talking, and he said, Melvin, ain't you tired of working in the mill? I said, well, I hadn't really thought about it. He said, yeah, he said, why don't you come on out here and learn how to build houses? I said, what? He said, yeah, come on. I said, you gonna give me a job? He said, yeah. I said, when can I start?
How were the relationships between blacks and whites before you moved to France?
Blacks and whites, we were segregated. But if you had a white family that was your neighbor, you were good friends. So just about on the road where I live now, and grew up on that road, and grew up with the white folks, we were all friends. But I remember being at home at night and hearing Mama and them talk about clans meeting down in the woods from where we were. I lived, you know where the zoo is in Troutman? Well, I live right up the road from it. And I was raised all up in that area. And it was a lovely place to live. No, everybody got along fine. The white folks were, we were just about the only black folks that lived on the road. So we knew all the white folks. They knew us, and they were our friends. We got along fine at the time, just the family of us.
White Street was developed by a man called Young White. And my father, Mr. Adams, Mr. Woods, and seemed like one more man in that neighborhood worked for him. And he built those 5 houses on that street. When I was growing up, I will never forget it. It was 5 houses on that side of the street, and Mrs. Emma Troutman worked for him as his maid, so she got the film.
Okay, so Mr. White was a Caucasian
Rich white man, but he took my father and 2 or 3 other guys under his wing and helped them get started at that particular time. And you would not believe the prices that those houses were at that time according to what prices are today. It is ridiculous.
How do you remember about the health care back then? How were you all taken care of or treated?
Most health care we got was from Grandma. Grandma had a solution for every situation. She had a bottle of this, or she could go outside and come up with something for everything that you suffered from. She had something to work it out with.
What was your grandmother's name?
My grandmother was named Floody Stewart, and that was my mother's mother. My father's mother was named Lena Haynes, and she lived she worked for Henry Moore Kelly. His daughters grew up in this area. Jane Kerrigan, the principal of the school, one of the schools here, right here in Mooresville, was his daughter. And my grandmother was their nanny.
Did you ever go over to the home, and when your grandmother was being the nanny, did you ever go over to their place?
Yes, we'd get to go down with my dad on Friday afternoon and pick her up, because they would let her come home to her little house with her family, which was us and some other loved ones, and stay from Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon, and then my dad would carry her back to the farm. This was at Mount Moen.
In Mount Moore, so were they like sharecroppers in that time? Or
yes, because he had, oh my God, cows. My daddy was a professional cow milker. At that time, you know, they had got the electric ones that you hook to the cow and milk them. I don't know in the process, but we'd have to go down. When they would go out of town or vacation or something, he would take us to the farm with him to do the cows in the afternoon to get the milk.
Professional cow milk. So when you all traveled, how were you traveling?
Well, for some reason or another, my dad always had a car. And we didn't have many cars at that time, but my dad had a car. Of course, he worked several jobs. Very smart man, very smart man.
Was he educated? I mean, smart, but no schooling?
7th grade, I think. My mother was 7th grade.
Did they instill education for you all? I know you said you went through 12th grade. Did
Yeah,
how was
They
that?
made sure that we had time out for study, time out for rest, and get up and go to school. They would carry us to school. My mother would drive us to school daily.
Did you have a large family?
I had 2 brothers and 1 sister.
Our people was like, my mother and them come from this area, come from out of here, so they wasn't used to doctors. They wasn't used to hospitals, you know. They did go and have their babies, you know. So when we got sick, they didn't rush us to the doctor right away. They tried to do us at home the best they could. Now, if you had blood coming out, they had to rush you to the emergency room. We didn't have a doctor. They took us to the emergency room, and you still might have to wait until they didn't even get to you. Because they're going to always get the white one before they get the black one, even then. That's God's honest truth, you know, even then. So they didn't trust doctors and hospitals. We did go, but they didn't trust them. Not like we do now.
Do you remember the black hospital?
I don't remember any of that. I'm at the generation with that. I'm at the generation, but no, I didn't do any of that. I don't know anything about segregation. I know nothing about that. I am 61 years old. Yes, do like I'm old, but no, it was past before I came. I think I missed about 2 years, maybe. You know, missed about 2 years. But I never went in this back door. I remember going up into the movies, and we sat up in the balcony at the movies. I remember that. But it was the best spot in the house to be up there watching that. You could see the screen good, so I didn't see no problem. I think that was the best spot to be, you know? So that's the only thing I can tell you about segregation, the movie theater. That's it. Nothing else.
I had already been in prison when I organized the march, when I helped organize the march. And I left again and went back to Virginia, but when I came back, I come back as a minister of the gospel. And my quest now is to try and draw as many people as I can to the kingdom of God, which I believe walks hand in hand with the civil rights movement. The people that were behind me that night, they gave me a sense of assurance that I wasn't standing alone. So I do believe now that if I was to go out there now and head up a movement, I would get just as many people, if not more, to follow, because I have proven myself to be who I say I am. And I'm not taken down. And my theme is I will not let up, back up, or shut up until I'm taken up. Haircut. We had the barber shop, we had the cafes. We had 2 cafes, 2 barber shops on West End. And everybody that comes to Mooresville came to West End. Eastern Heights, they call it, on Cabarrus Street, which was Allison's Grill, another one of the night spots. And these were the places that, as children, we just couldn't stay away from because of all of the excitement, fighting. It reminds you of the old saloon days in the western towns. It's every weekend, somewhere around before midnight, there's always a fight break out. And the police would come and they would sit up on what they call the back street. They would sit up there with their lights out and watch. And people getting busted in the head with bricks and 2x4s, and getting their face slashed, their throat slashed, and they would just sit there. I mean, this is about how much they cared about what happened in these black neighborhoods. And once they watched enough, they would crank up and they'd leave. Well, for the most part, most of the people that I knew, it's just like it all flew apart because it was hard to keep the people together with all of these other groups coming up that was opposed to King, just the opposite. They were just the opposite of what King was or what King wanted. And we just dispersed. But that didn't stop the movement in Mooresville because, like I said, we had people like Terry Graham, Norris Graham, the fronters, June Fronters, Robert Bowers. They were people that were entrepreneurs, that they had the opportunity to meet the public, to meet more people every day. They kept it going. They were because they were Robert Bowers and June Fronters. They were even in the march, and they would keep the conversation going. Like that night, we marched. We went out to let the people know that we are saddened over King's death, and that we will not take this sitting down. Although there was no rioting, there was no looting, and there was no violence at all. But we made a statement by that march saying we shall overcome. And that was King's theme, we shall overcome. And that theme is still going today. And things are still getting better because of him. Terry Graham, Robert Bowers, June Fronters, there were barbers and taxi drivers, Norris Graham. They had the opportunity to reach more people. They had daily contact with people. And not only that, they began to bring in more and more white people into the movement that would break loose from the, what should I call it? The fear of being called the in-lover. A lot of other names that they call them. Well, in reference to that fog truck, I learned that it was DDT, that they were spraying and made a big fog. We'd hear it coming, and we'd all run and get behind it, and we'd be running up in that smog, and they knew that it was DDT. But nobody ever said, get out of that smog, man, that stuff is dangerous, it can kill you. It will give you lung disease. It can cause all different types of ailments in your body. That was never said. And they knew that we'd be sitting on the side of the road in the ditch waiting on that truck. When it started spraying that DDT, we were running right in behind it. And as far as the roads, we was on dirt roads. And people would complain about the dust. We need paved roads. You got paved roads all over Mooresville, but in the black neighborhood, there's no paved roads. So they come and they would spray burn oil on the road to keep the dust out. The Environmental Protective Agency stopped that. It wasn't nothing to do with them caring about our health or well-being. It was about the underground well being contaminated with these oils, burnt oils and so forth.
During that era, right before I graduated, after Dr. King was assassinated, there was what was called, after I had returned to Unity High School, there was what was called a Mountaintop to the Valley March. And the buses came from, up in the mountains, Tennessee, and they came down through past a lot of the schools, and there was a march that we all joined. And at Unity High School, and there were rider trucks, yellow rider trucks. We all got behind them singing, "We shall overcome. I'm so glad Jesus lifted me." A lot of the freedom songs, "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around." And we walked all the way past down to, I think some of them went to Salisbury. But during that time, I was about 16 years old, and they used to let students drive the bus. And I was a bus driver. So I had to come back home. I was coming back to get back to the school so we could pick up the other kids and take them home. However, when we returned to Unity High School's campus, thinking that we were going to drive the bus. All the kids were expelled from school, and our parents had to take us back the next day. Of course, my father wasn't too happy that he had to take off work to retire for me to get back in school, and so my parents had a nice talk with me, and my father decided, well, son, if you don't think you can go to school and stay in school, and I have to watch you, you might want to come work with me. So I decided at that point that it'd probably be best for me to stay in school the next time. So I don't even rent yellow buses, yellow trucks when I move. So that was a good thing. When you became 16 years old, you could drive the school bus. And the older guys on Parkertown Road drove the school buses. For the most part, it was money. When later on, when I got to ride the school buses, they got $30 a month. So it's like $1 a day for driving the kids to school. And I even drove as I got older. I was a school bus driver. And we made $33 a month, and that was pretty good. And then we got a raise. Later on, after I had started driving to $90, I drove the bus from here on Parkertown Road down to the gas plant down by Lake Norman, back over to Amity Elementary School, and then I got on another bus and went to high school at Unity High School, and when that was over, I drove the bus back. My route was 33 miles a day. So I had to leave here and pick up kids at like 7 o'clock in the morning, so I would get to the school and make sure that we stopped at the train tracks and that no train was coming and all of that. And of course, when kids got in a little trouble on the buses, you had to take them back to school and talk to Mr. Miller. After I left home to go off to college, I went to Statesville, North Carolina, to King's Department Store. And I was buying linen for my bed in the dorm room. I went over to Housewares in King's Department Store in Statesville. And I could feel somebody watching me. And next thing I know, the manager, they had gone and gotten the manager, and they had accused me of stealing linen. And it was wanted to know, well, why was you gonna steal it for your? I said, I go to college. I'm enrolled at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. They made me show my ID from college. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to me, even though I was trying to better myself and get an education. And I had money because I was on work study also at college, at school. And for them to accuse me of trying to steal linen, I told them, you can keep this. I don't ever want to come back in this store, and I never did again. After that summer, when I worked, while I was working during the summer for the Arts Center in Winston-Salem, this was my mid-year at the School of the Arts. My dad was bricking this house. Of course, my father he was one of the main masons who did the work on the First Baptist Church in Statesville. And we stopped at a car dealership, and I found a Harold Triumph that I wanted. It was a little white car with wood grain on the sides, and it had wood grain dashboard. It was wonderful with red seats. And the man said that he would sell me the car. He said, I know your daddy. I tell you what, my son, I know you going to school, and this will be a nice little car for you. And he charged us $350 for that car. When I got in the car and I headed home, I went right down, just like my daddy said, go down through town and get on 21, you go straight home. When I crossed the outside of Statesboro, and I here in Iredell County, the police followed me all the way to my house. He followed me. I was so nervous. I was so scared. I did not know what to do. And he followed me all the way down to the end of Parkertown Road. I turned in the driveway. He kept going and he turned around. I was shaking like a leaf on a tree. And my mom and my dad wanted to know what's wrong. I said, the police followed me. She said, well, you know, that's a nice little car and they probably don't want a little black kid to have that. So, but I kept it. They let me keep the car, but I never forget that. So when I come home, I always try to make sure, even after I got a nice car, that you drive slow, because I didn't want to get a speeding ticket.
Black Kurt, we had fun. We had fun. I mean, we didn't have it all. We didn't have a lot. But we had fun and wasn't stressed out, and we all got along with each other, and we didn't fight, and we didn't hurt each other. And everybody has to go to fights and playing balls. We shot, and people ask kids about shooting marbles. They never heard of a marble.
That's right.
Do you know what shooting marbles are? We shoot marbles. It's a marble. We draw around a circle in the ground, and we shoot marbles. That's the game we play. But we play for keeps, and that's the biggest fights we have. We'll be fighting over marbles, You probably seen the marbles come in the cereal box, cat eye marbles. We used to shoot marbles. We used to play marbles. That was in the fish tank. We had a game with that. He laughing, Terry, but that's all we played. That's what we played, marbles. I had my kids, I said, y'all play marbles? No, they ain't never tell them marbles. Pitch horseshoes.
Yeah.
But we didn't have, I tell them, they don't believe me, we didn't pitch horseshoes with the horseshoes they got now. We pitch horseshoes with the regular horseshoes. My grandfather, we live on a farm. When the man changed horses on the horseshoe, they bring us the shoes. We play a game with them. I'm telling the truth. I mean, that's all I'm telling the truth, but they don't believe me. We played pitch horseshoes with regular horseshoes. That's where the game come from, horses. But, it was a game. And that's all you had to do. You had to make out the best you could with what you had, And there wasn't 3 meals a day. You might eat, you eat what you could find. My grandmother would cook in the morning. What you cook in the morning, if you didn't eat what was on that table, and you didn't eat till your daddy got home. You sat there, you don't care how hungry you was, you sat there and you'd be hungry. If you didn't eat right then, whatever was on the table, you ate. If you didn't eat, you didn't get nothing. You couldn't run out and get McDonald's. We didn't have no McDonald's and no Hardee's or nothing like that. All you had was the kitchen. If you were hungry, if you didn't eat, you didn't get nothing.
Like I said, there's a lot of things I remember as a kid, like I said, until I was able enough to go to school. And that was a daily thing until I finished high school. And then after that, like I said, I went to work. I worked in textile for quite a while. I finally decided to get married. So I done that, we had kids, and we went from there. And jobs got better during the course of time in my life, growing and everything. Like I was just saying, even when coming up as a child, I remember when stuff wasn't really completed, for like beans and all that stuff in bags. You had to get it in a bag by the book. Gas and bread and stuff like that was cheap. Like I say, in my younger days in school, milk was 3 cents a dollar. And that's mostly my life. I enjoyed, my life as I come up. Even as today, I enjoy my life. I can't say exactly how old this, but we just celebrated 174 years. But the lady across the street, she was a white lady. She was, I forgot her last name anyway. she told me and my cousin, actually, this church here was founded in a white church. We come out of a white church. Carter Creek Presbyterian is right down here. Like I said, I think this church, she told us that this church was built, wasn't long after Carter Creek was built. Now Carter Creek is 260-some years old. And I feel like that we should be at least 230, at least. But nobody here that can say that. I went out back there before y'all got here and I looked at a couple of the oldest graves back there. We got graves from 1917 and all that. But there's not a whole bunch of tombstones, but I was told that they was buried all the way across. So I don't know who's out there and what's out there. That's before my time, but the one of the stones out there I counted up, and from the day to day is like 170-some years old. But I still say I tried to get them years ago to accept a date for this church, because from my childhood, from what I know, this is the only black church was in Mooresville at the time we were growing up. So I know Reese Memorial Presbyterian Church is 160-something. So all these other churches come in after it, so I don't know. But most of all these churches, this wasn't the AME Zion Church when it was built. All churches were just AMEs. John Wesley come back and discovered that he needed to make something different out of the Zion Church. So he come back with an African Episcopal Zion Church. So that's where we at now with this. But I couldn't tell you exactly. I know we was in 1875, it was built in 1875. And then the church caught a fire some kind of way. This is before my time, though. This is the information I got from some of the other people. And then it was rebuilt in 1886. So by Reverend James Hill. So I don't know exact. I couldn't give you an exact date how old this church is. So, but I'm saying we're at least 230. But getting the people to accept that, I don't know.
But you would definitely say this is the oldest black church.
Yes. Well, I think they like it is to 160, because usually we celebrate every year. It's it's $170. That's what you got to pay. So I guess they like it like instead of 200. So, but I don't know.
I would say at an early age, it was a lot of blacks played like rec ball, sports, and then once we got to school, the majority of them didn't play sports. And I don't think majority of them didn't go out. And the coaches back then in the schools, there were some that was kind of racist, but majority of them wasn't. And they pretty much frowned on grades. I had a situation where when I was in high school, I had it was in middle school. And, middle school, they went by you passing classes every week. High school is about a semester. So I had a situation in middle school where I had failed science that week. And my science teacher, she was black. And she told the coach, so I didn't get to play that week.
And, you know, she told me she was doing that to help me. Now, I found out that, you know, majority of the white teachers, you know, they didn't stress education, and, you know, they were satisfied with putting, back then we called it social promotion. All they do is put you on that, and you just, I mean, they pass you regardless of what your grades are. And when I got to high school, I had messed up the last semester, and it wasn't like but 2 or 3 games left. And they called me in, and they was asking me, you know, told me that I wouldn't be able to play the last 3 games unless that I wanted to. They called it social promotion or special promotion. But at that time, my mom was in the hospital, and I just determined I wasn't gonna play no more because, we wasn't winning. So I remember that night I went over to see her in the hospital, and she was like, "Well, I thought you had a game." I said, "No, I ain't playing." And she asked me why, and I said, "Because I failed that last semester." And she said, "Well, you know what you got to do to be successful." And I said, "Well, I can play, but they want to put me on social promotion." She was like, "No, you're not going on that." And see, at the time, I didn't know what that was until I found out with some of the other guys in school, that's what they was talking about. They put you on there so you can play sports, and once you get on there, you own it. And they'll give you a certificate saying you went to school. You wouldn't get no diploma. He was more or less like a father figure. He actually made me believe in myself. And, you know, because by him coaching in the college ranks and coaching in the professional ranks, you know, he knew all about that stuff. He had, you know, college recruits would come over to the school and talk to me. You know, he would make sure that, you know, I was they would let me out of class to come talk to him. And he was a big influence up until the day he died to me. Because, you know, we always talked. Back when, a few years ago, when they was looking for coaches over there, I went to him and asked him about it. And he told me, he said, "Go ahead and apply for it." He said, "I know you can do the job." And, you know, he knew how the school system was. Because like I said, you know, the school system didn't want to give me that award. He told them. And, you know, and these are the exact words he said. He said, "Goddamn, Nathan deserves that award."
When I grew up, there was no mixing, or should I say, between white and the black like it is now. But see, now it's common. You see, you see interracial couples. You know, you might see grandparents and they got a grandchild that's mixed race, as they say. You know, that's one thing, and I guess that's probably one of the biggest issues that I see, and I guess that's the biggest issue that I can think of, and that's good because we all need to come together. We all need to come together. There's no better set of people and a worse set of people. All of us are supposed to be God's people anyway, and that's the main thing.
Do you think the town of Mooresville helped facilitate that type of inclusion?
Yeah, I think so. As a whole, I do think so. Now you're gonna have some negatives. You're gonna have some negatives everywhere. You know, you got some people right around here who can't stand each other. You know, but as a whole, I think it's acceptable. Even in your schools, if you go to a school, you know, it's like that. it's acceptable to see all kind of people getting along together. But when I was coming up, you wouldn't dare see that. Ain't no way.
Could you tell us your name and how you're connected to Mooresville?
Yes, my name is Karen Abercrombie, and I'm connected to Mooresville because it is now my home.
Where were you before?
I came here from Los Angeles. I was out there working, doing some film, and I wanted to move back to the East Coast. I was originally born outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but coming back to the East Coast after living out in LA, I didn't want to deal with that cold.
And what have you learned about Mooresville since you've been here?
Oh, it's a beautiful place. It's quickly growing, oh my goodness. And there is a lot of wonderful history that has not been uncovered, or that people don't know about. I mean, an example, Selma Burke. People would say, Selma who? I did not know who Selma Burke was until I came down here. Everybody at some point in their lives, they hold a dime in their hands, and they're not aware that an African American woman from Mooresville, North Carolina, created that image on the dime of Theodore Roosevelt. So just, a lot of stuff. And it's important that we know that, because when we know the contributions that people make, then it puts us on even ground, so we can have that respect coming and going. Yeah.
We have history here in Mooresville. With Miss Winnie Hooper, with Pike, and with so many of the others, Obie Stevenson, even June Shepard, he had a little thing going too. Nobody mentioned him, but he had a little thing going as well. With Joe Byers, you're talking Randy McDowell, the Caldwell family, the Kaysen family, the Burtons, I think was their name. The Corners, Miss Mayfield Caldwell, they always had a baseball team, they was in a lot of sports and things. There's a lot of people here in Mooresville that, Napoleon Lowry, which everybody knows him now for what he does at the school and what he did at the school. So a lot of kids remember him, but there's many more. I know that if we could have started this 20 years ago, we could probably get more names and everything of what we have now, but there's a lot of history in Mooresville. I'm hoping that everyone that sees this documentary, I'm hoping that it will do something, that it will inspire you to reach out to each other, to one another, to try to bridge this gap that's been spread far too long. This bridge that we are trying to cross now, we should have crossed it years ago. We should have crossed it years ago. Everybody's not bad. All races are not bad. But we have some bad ones in all. Hopefully this will bring Mooresville together. That what we all can do, as Martin Luther King, where we can all walk down the road and sing together in harmony. This is what I'm hoping. That this documentary will bring harmony into our communities.